Great.
Hello and welcome to another episode of BlackLantic. This is season 3, episode 18. If you're tuning in right now, make sure you hit subscribe, comment, like before you watch the episode or during, if you know it's going to be good. Hillary, I'm Clinton. This is Hillary, and
I like this new branding of it's going to be good, and it is going to be good. This week we are with Noel and Roxane, the authors of Jerk Chicken Magic, an adorable book around, I think, the magic that food brings together, culture, community, and we are going to dive in with them in just a second.
BlackLantic Media acknowledges that it carries out its work on the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and Pesquetumakati peoples.
I would also like to acknowledge that I am seated on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I'll give us grace for being rusty because we've done so many interviews side by side because of Black History Month. We've barely done anything virtual, and we sort of just missed our beautiful guests and having the opportunity to interview two in person. But we're slow on clicking the buttons. But good morning, Noel and Roxane.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Are you holding a dog?
Yeah. It's been a busy day. Yeah.
This is why people should watch. If you're listening, you should watch.
What's the name of the dog? We need to know. You can't bring dog on it.
Well, yeah, lots of distractions for me today, but we're doing it. I just got back from 6.5 days in Toronto where Hillary and I got a lot done, so people are going to see that soon. But the center of attention today needs to be Noel and Roxane. How are you two? Can you start off by introducing yourselves, telling us about where you're from, where you grew up, a bit of your background, and
Yeah,
sure.
thing.
You want to go?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Okay, so in terms of where we grew up, we're originally from Jamaica. We moved to Canada in 2016. Yeah. Our lives there were pretty centered around marketing and communication. And then Noel was in a creative space. He'll do his intro, but I was in marketing. We decided that, we wanted to venture out, try something new, and what better time in our lives? This was pre-kids, to make a move, and we're like, oh, let's go. I'd never been to Canada before, and we were just like, let's just start our lives there. And we ended up in Toronto, and landing here, I did a bit of school, and then after school, transitioned into communications, and then from there, right now I work as engagement manager for a Toronto-based fintech, and really loving that space. So, in terms of career-wise, that's how pretty much we've landed. And then for you?
Yeah, I mean, my story is pretty much mirrors my wife's. I mean, again, grew up primarily in Jamaica, but lived in New York for a little bit, and then we decided to move to Toronto, not because of any type of not that we necessarily had to move from where we were,
just like of where you were and love for Jamaica.
Yeah, we were both in a really good place, career-wise, life-wise, but there was just something that kept calling us to do a little bit more, not just for ourselves, but maybe for the community at large. And I mean, we and man, has it been a journey? Just leaving the comfort zone of bright, tropical, cherry, environment to then literally having to start over, right? Which is kind of where the the impetus for the book came about. Is just like a little bit of our story is in there, and
baked into it, and the journey of immigrants starting over. So that's we essentially started over when we came here, as most people do when they make that journey, starting anew. So that journey is really packed into this book into a very short summary. but I think it kind of like mirrors a lot of people's experiences.
Yeah. And sorry, just in terms of my background. Yeah, my background is in design. I've worked in design for over 20 years. I've worked at various companies over the years. I've been various industries, including tech, mobile telecoms, nonprofit,
He
education.
runs a magazine called Backyard Magazine in Jamaica, which is a regular entertainment magazine. He's been doing that for years.
It's like the No magazine of
Jamaica,
the Caribbean, basically, right? And No author for Jerk Chicken Magic. So,
That's incredible. I was gonna ask because you had mentioned the publishing thing before we were recording, and so I wasn't gonna let you forget it. But I think that's so incredible, and I do want to get into how your story is baked into the novel, because I did notice and assumed. But first, I want to ask, because we do tend to ask our guests that have come from away and come to Canada, have you ever been to the East Coast or the Maritimes?
No, but it's been on our list. I will say the farthest we've been, that's PEC, which is not obviously not just a county, but we plan to, and we actually had Noel's cousin, like we talked about like meeting up, and they would drive up from New York, and like we would just like do kind of like like an early like summer, reach out to find out when the best time, and you all can tell us when is the best time to like experience.
July.
Okay.
I would say. We get very like surprised. I think a lot of people who don't know might be very surprised that the like 40-degree heat and the beautiful beaches and the ocean, and like the nature is stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend going in the summer. I go back home every summer. It's absolutely stunning. But I'll give you all my tourist recommendations later, because there is a litany. I got a list. But yeah, I want to ask about the process. So with your different backgrounds, you approached writing a children's book together, Jerk Chicken Magic. And I'm so curious about why you decided to write a children's book, how that came to be, and also what the process is like doing something creative like that with your partner and your spouse, because I can imagine that comes with some interesting realities.
I mean, I'll let Roxane speak about
he's gonna let me start
working with your spouse, but
it's interesting, because I always say that like I really liked it, like we push each other like in the best way, and I said to you even like a few days ago, I'm like, I really liked work, because since the pandemic, let me just give you backstory. Since the pandemic, we have both been like working from home together, and I really enjoyed it. I know like it can be like a pressure cooker for like couples and relationships, but we managed to balance it, and I finally like that we've been working directly together on something. Like we both had like our own projects, and like I've been an entrepreneur, and I've done other things, and I had like a business going, and then we finally realized we need to put 100% effort into like Coconut Milk, which is our creative studio, and we found that's how things kind of flourished, right? So like he came to me one day. We've always talked about doing something, especially from the immigrant experience angle, things that mirror our lives, and like he's talked about a children's book, and he came down one day like from being upstairs and said, I think we should do a children's book. I feel like we should do it and center it around something that's culturally relevant, like jerk chicken. I feel like that is going to be make it universal. And I was like, I'm like, sure, like I agree, like, and then we started working on it, and I think he first drafted the story, and we like worked on it, like, okay, we want to make sure that we pack a lot. We did our research on like children's book in general, because you can go the route of like, this children's book that's really talking about real life experiences and how like a child's perspective on it, and that's the road. And then you have the other road where it's more whimsical and more about overcoming something like through like some character. So our road, we wanted to make sure we packed a lot into like a short
essentially we wanted to make something that was very authentic to us, right? So I think as far as the process goes, that was kind of the very first stage of it, is to find a topic that would not only resonate with individuals or audiences like ourselves, but even a wider audience outside of just the Caribbean diaspora, right? So we decided that, telling an immigrant story was the way to go for that, first of all. And and then, landing on the topic of jerk chicken. Well, I mean, arguably, it's like one of the most popular dishes ever, right? I don't think there's anywhere in the world.
But you mentioned Jamaica, and you don't, like, obviously Bob Marley and like you see Bolt, the sports side of things, but like food wise, jerk chicken is really like synonymous with Jamaica, and we thought like just instant recognition would be good. And then we in that learning about the history, learning about the origins of jerk chicken, how it really came about. A lot of people don't know it was survival why they even ended up with that dish. So it's interesting the questions that come up from like adults who be like, I didn't know this, I'm googling like the history behind it. And even kids, like we've had like author readings and kids questions from 4-year-olds. Why did they have to hide? And then so we're explaining that, so this is the kind of thing
we had to give them the Disney version.
Yes, obviously. And then we got a chance to read the story, Hillary, and it touched on and obviously the origins it's slavery and having to hide from having to escape and not wanting them to find where they are in the mountains and in the cockpits of Jamaica and cockpit country. So so that's the origin, and we had to make it, like you said, palatable for kids, and then it would spark those deeper conversations once kids wanting to know more. And we always say that it's from, and we've heard this saying that like books can either be a mirror or a window, and I think for like immigrants and it would be like a mirror in terms of like the experiences for most people, and then for those who are not immigrants, it will be a window into our lived experiences of immigrants. So that's what we kind of like
that's incredible.
Absolutely cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, based on what you said and the research that you've done, that this is the first time that either of you have put together a book or written a book, and specifically a children's book.
Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like what you hope kids feel when they read this book or get from it is just like a deeper conversation, more curiosity, more questions, or like, can you expand on what you were saying, that like, what do you hope kids take from?
So I guess, if we had to like do the TLDR version of it, we really want the takeaway to be pride, just like real pride in your culture, regardless of your background, pride in your, your culinary heritage, your culinary traditions, which, we live in North America, so a lot of that isn't really being, brought forward, right? A lot of it is being at a conversation over the holidays, literally about this topic, that a lot of the traditions that we experienced growing up, they're hardly anywhere to be found, or we're not really even teaching our own kids, right? So this was kind of an ode to that, and obviously specifically in the Afro-Caribbean culture, paying homage to that, specifically in Jamaica, just like this dish that we all love, like how did it originate, right? It originated from strife, from our ancestors having to survive, right? Quite literally. And it's now beloved the world over, but no one, every time you take a bite of the chicken, you have absolutely no idea. People are like, oh my God, this is hot, but there's a whole story and a group of people that, had to go through a lot just to bring it forward. So so the takeaway is, yes, we want them to have that understanding, but also, to spark the conversation, like you said, about like, we're like we've had some of our readers message us to say that, they've had conversations with their kids around like, so where did you come from, Mom? Or where did you come from, Dad? What's your story? Right? Like, their kids asking them these questions, which is not something that we typically ask, really.
I think in immigrant families, like we take the interactions that we have for granted sometimes. Like, we grow up and things are happening, or dishes are happening, and they're making certain things, they're talking about certain conversations, but they're not really engaging like the younger ones in the family to like really, okay, come and learn this dish. This is something that we've been doing in our family for a long time. We want to make sure that it gets passed on for generations. So yeah, that's, again, it's really starting those conversations, and so people know and talk about the heritage, their own culture, and really feel more connected, especially with kids.
Yeah.
I think that that's incredible. And I mean, not to, we talked about it a couple of times throughout the podcast, but we were able to help build the Black Histories curriculum for the province of New Brunswick. And I think what's great about this book is it'll ask and lead to questions that hopefully history curriculums will answer. Because I think that what you may find having immigrated to Canada is the fact that we don't know a whole lot. We don't know a whole lot about how Black people got here, and it's very much missing from all of the history education across the entire country. And so having kids that young reading a book and asking those questions will lead to answers that maybe the school systems are not providing. And so I think that that's an amazing way to sort of get around an issue that is very, very prevalent across this country in terms of what is the African Caribbean diaspora? How did we all get here, et cetera, and even, learning more about your own family. So I do think that that's incredible. How has the reception of the book been so far? I know that you had an opening here, and so I'm excited and curious to hear like what has the takeaway been so far, if you've gotten any feedback yet. And like, I know that you've mentioned you have some kids, and I know there's one that's old enough to maybe read it. I'm curious if that child has given you any feedback about your own book.
Yeah. So we have a 4-year-old. Her name is Nora, and we have a 7-month-old. His name is Miles. And just in terms of the feedback, I mean,
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're girl dads here, right? Are we girl dads, or was that your son in the background earlier?
I'm both.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Okay, yeah. We're still.
That was my son.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
I'm a girl dad. Yeah.
But just in terms of the feedback, it's been over, like the level of positivity has been overwhelming. Like even just like being here on your show, on your podcast, like we're so grateful, because it's like it means so much to us that anyone would even want to talk to us about the book or about
the story
and like even just like getting to know us in general, right? We thank you guys for the work that you're doing. But even from like the reader perspective, everyone has we've
had like, so it's the spectrum. Like we've had moms reach out to us and say, like, again, we mentioned like sparking conversation about like, Mom, where are you from, blah, blah, blah. And or teachers have brought this into the classroom already. Like we're just like mind blown by, we just published this in January, and like the places that it's gone already and the conversations that it's sparking. Like in the classroom, teachers have spoken to their own kids about their own family traditions after reading the story, and people are interested in learning more about Jamaica and jerk chicken. But then also, they're sharing their own traditions and their own dishes, and they're asking their parents. Like we had like a quote from one teacher when a kid like messaged her after reading the book saying she loved the book so much she wanted to try jerk chicken. She told her mom, and her mom bought the ingredients and made it immediately that evening for them.
There's a recipe in the back too.
Yeah, there's a recipe at the back of the book.
Wow.
Yeah, so we wanted, again, it to really get people going, and we send it out there with no expectations. We publish with this book, and it's just interesting to see what people come. We get tagged in videos of kids making festivals with, which is like a fried dough with cornmeal and flour base that's served with jerk chicken. So we got videos getting tagged in those different dishes, people trying to cook the dish itself, and it's just been really, really amazing, the kind of feedback. And we've been doing author readings live in schools as well. And as I mentioned before, we had like 4 and 5-year-olds, JKSK, kindergarten kids, asking these like really deep questions, and we're just like,
what?
Kids are smart.
No, they're incredibly so smart. And like, you read a story and you go through a story and you wonder what they'll grasp from it at the end of it. And we were so blown away, like just how the questions they came back with how they understood the story. And even like the next day, the parents coming back to us saying that from the schools, you know, messaging us saying, wow, like we really, and they had to like, you know, either buy the book or do this based on what the kid was like asking for. So yeah, really.
So you've been busy with the book, it sounds like. How has Black History Month been for you? It sounds like you've been doing some circuits and going around.
We're trying.
Yeah, we're trying. You know, like we're trying to get the word out. We've done Breakfast TV, CB24 Breakfast in Toronto, and you know, a couple other local TV stations in Jamaica too.
We had to do the local circuit in terms of Jamaica and like
obviously, you know, BlackLantic.
Okay. Atlantic provinces, gotta get that book out east. What was the magazine called in Jamaica that you worked for? Sorry, Hillary.
Yeah, it's called
Background, right?
Like
Background magazine.
Yeah, it's called Backyard. This is like
Backyard.
This is like Barry's Hammond on the cover, but we've done like Sean Paul, we've done Damian Marley, we've done
like
the list goes on.
Fair amount of like Jamaican artists ranging, but
amazing. Backyard.
Hillary,
I like that.
Did you have a question? Because I have.
I did. Well, I just wanted to ask briefly. I was going to ask briefly because I think it's a good time to sort of plug it sort of in the center. If people at this point are interested in the book, and they should be, is it going to be available across Canada like Indigo? Is it an online order? How do people get a copy of the book?
Yeah, so right now you can get it online on Amazon, but we are within like this week, it should be pushed out to other locations. So we should be able to get it in Indigo or like online on Indigo and other local like bookstores once we kind of lock in the distribution aspect of it. And we'll be launching a hardcover version of it as well, because right now I believe it's a paperback version that we have. But yeah, so that's so we started out with Amazon. We are self-published through our brand Coconut Milk, so that was the route that we got it out there. And we've also sold like obviously like directly through our website as well.
And, coconutmilk.co is where you can also get the book as well as other merch. But I mean the great plan is to, you know, do an audiobook and maybe have like the great Shirley Lee Ralph.
Oh my God, that would be a dream.
That's our dream, right? To have her read the audiobook, right? Yeah. And she's so great, right? She's so like
we call her the jewel of Jamaica.
Yeah,
she's always like
I think we coined that term.
Oh yeah.
We coined it. We told her that you're the jewel of Jamaica. So she was tickled by that. But and then ultimately we were inspired by the short film Here Love.
Yeah.
And you know, that went on to win an Academy Award because it was the first of its kind at the time, and this is kind of the first of its kind.
Yeah,
we don't really get these stories very often.
And Caribbean stories, and you know, if like coming off of like even like something like Black Cake, like for us seeing that kind of
the film on
Disney and on that kind of level and platform, it's just great, and we just want to be able to like create more opportunities for like Caribbean people to see themselves, and you know, in different ways. So yeah, we would love. We're taking kind of like the reverse approach because I think Here Love did animation, then they did a book. We're doing a book, and then hopefully we can get to the point where we are doing a short film as well.
Hopefully,
yeah.
Hopefully it all can expand, keep on expanding and growing as you go. So the people listening to the audio podcast, you can't see this, but we've pulled up the website, and that's coconutmilk.co. Very beautiful, simple, and just elegant homepage. People want to purchase it. And regarding the book, so it sounds like within this story, because Hillary has read it and I haven't yet, is the background to where Jerk Chicken came from uncovered?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes. So
okay, perfect. Okay, so we're not gonna
no, it is.
If anyone's curious after the show, just get the book.
We made it palatable for kids to understand. And he talks about the journey, and just to kick off, not giving away.
The background is pretty crazy.
She talks about being excited about making jerk chicken with her family for the day. So when she gets to learn about the origins, she gets to make it, understand the recipe from her family, and then there's a bit of magic that jerk chicken brings to her, you know, family at the end of the book. That is just, I guess, tied into like her experience as an immigrant and what her mom had to go through to make a life for herself. Yeah.
And so you wrote a book on this. So in your opinions, like, why does food so commonly just bring people together across cultures in such important ways?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's, I guess it's really just hard to be angry with someone when your tummy is being
you're breaking
filled.
bread, you're exchange. It's an exchange without saying anything, right? So there are a lot of people, and it's a way for you to even experience a culture without even traveling to the country, right? So you may have never stepped foot in a specific country, you may have stepped foot in Jamaica, but you probably can get a you can go to a Jamaican restaurant or a Caribbean-based restaurant and get jerk chicken and
capture a small vibe.
But I feel like food is definitely the common ground, along with music, I think, but like food definitely brings families together, brings people together in a way that is to me is just magical. Like you could have difference of opinion but still enjoy the same food, and I feel like that's the common ground that really kind of gets people out of the conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that we try now, like, from what I understand of when I went to school to now, there was so many instances of kids would sort of say mean things about other people's food if they didn't like the smell or they didn't understand where it came from. And we've moved so far away from that in terms of just like having a negative experience to being open to trying it and open to the smells. And like, I do remember the first time that I had jerk chicken and I was in my like early 20s. Like it's got to be in the last like 5 to 7 years that it was the first time that I had it. I was with Clinton the first time I had oxtail. That was only like 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember just being like, where was this all of my life? What do you mean? And so to go from like kids having, I think, maybe visceral experiences around smells to allowing them to be open and realizing that like there is a world and there is a world of food that is just waiting for you to explore. I think this book is a great vehicle for that.
But it hasn't though, Hillary. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away. It definitely has not gone away in New Brunswick schools, and maybe Noel and Roxane can speak to Toronto schools. Kids are still very much making fun of other kids for the foods they eat, the smells. I've even heard of like teachers' friends that we know who in like the teacher's office, I guess a child's mother sent a meal to the teacher as a thank you for something, and it was probably East Indian, and the teacher was complaining about the food and the smells. So in New Brunswick, like this happens quite a bit, and I don't know what it's like in Toronto, but hopefully books like this, if it is happening in Toronto, can help to break down and make those kids understand that not to do that. I'm sure, I know we've come forward, Hillary, but trust me, it's still happening. Like
it's
2 weeks ago.
That's the thing.
And that's also a really good point too, Clinton, because I feel like maybe that's even something that needs, because we're going in schools now, we're having the talk, so we'll probably add that as one of the questions. But it's definitely something for the Ontario School Board to consider. Like, as you said, that this book could really be a vehicle to own those conversations, right? So we can like kind of like stop that narrative of
to create pride on the child's end who's bringing these foods to school. Like even if you are being targeted in some way because of, you have your pride and say, I love my food and I'm proud of this food and it tastes great. But in the other sense of stopping those kids who are really, exactly.
Or just not letting it bother you. Just like, y'all don't know what you're talking about. Y'all don't know anything about this food. So
you're missing out on this good food.
You don't like the smell? That's because your nose buds are not developed.
Exactly.
That's what I try to teach my kid to say.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I wanted to ask, so we touched on it a little bit, but you did mention that there are moments of your like journey and life stories within the book. And I did pick up on it immediately when reading it. I don't want to spoil too much, but obviously, the mom is told that she like listed, I guess, or said that she's brave for having sort of given up everything to move somewhere else. And you see the dad, I think, who's been deployed from war returning. And so I was curious, not only why it was important to share like those moments that seem to maybe resemble your life stories, but also like why it's important to have those narratives in a kid's book where they might have questions about how they got, I would assume, to a new place or to Canada, and sort of like those little nods to a struggle and a journey, and why was that important?
I think, again, just like going back to our story, and again, story of many people who come here. We mentioned that our lives in Jamaica, we were pretty good, like in terms of like where we were in our careers. We were, you know, like lead in terms of like marketing. You're the lead in terms of creative directing. Like you make this decision to, okay, let's make a move to a new country, and then when you come here, like a lot of your qualifications and the things that you've worked so hard to develop and build in your own country, it's almost essentially erased, and you are just starting at the bottom of the rung to then work your way back up. What we want people to understand, even in just that simple line and that page that introduces that narrative, is that there are a lot of people that go through this, and we will move here. People move here and they're leaving everything behind. No network that they've built over several years. Often no support system of families coming in from time to time, back and forth, to support, but there's no like consistent like village that many people being here would have like developed over time. So you starting over, we really wanted to make sure that narrative was very clear in the most succinct way, because we didn't want to, we wanted to touch on it, and I know you got a chance to look at it. Hillary wanted to touch on it briefly, and how a mom and a daughter would have such a conversation in a way that she would understand that, yes, I did this and now I'm here, and and which is the line is you have to go to grow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to expound on it too, I mean, we want to honor those individuals that come here with literally no friends or no family. I mean, that's super tough. We fortunately had family here. We speak to the multi-generational family where someone comes over, and whether your grandparents or whoever, and then you all kind of grow up in this multi-generational household, right? So
aunties and uncles who may like come through and support you.
But even with that, it's still pretty tough, it's because
you're not like in like where you're coming from. You would have had like grown up like whether it's from like in high school and had like a network of friends and like their families and like people you've come across in your career. You come here, you're starting at ground zero. Like you're making new introductions. You're trying to network at every like opportunity that you can. And
it's like your whole identity is erased, right? Like you come with all this experience, with all this knowledge, with literally you're a grown ass person, right? you're like for some of us, right? Not right? You're growing, and like you have your you have your house, your car,
they're starting
but
over.
then you come in and then you have to start over.
And the other perspective. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying the other perspective too was the coming from, for us specifically, coming from a country that was predominantly a Black country, and then coming here, it was a transition for us. But then we have to understand this perspective of our kids. We didn't grow up with that narrative. We didn't grow up in that environment. We were the predominant like race that was in the country. So we have to be mindful of how our kids are experiencing this. Like, yes, they have the Jamaican culture, but they're growing up in an environment where they are the minority. So again, we wanted a story to really celebrate the heritage, celebrate the roots, and then from their perspective as well, and how that would play out for them. Yeah.
We hear that a lot. We hear like Hillary and I, we've always been the minority, right? But we hear a lot of times when people come from other countries and immigrate, in some cases, like from some African countries, these people didn't even know they were Black. They didn't know they were Black. They were Senegalese or Nigerian, and I'm not sure if it's the same mentality in Jamaica, of just considering yourself Jamaican and not really thinking of yourself as Black. Although it might be more acknowledged there. It sounds like you didn't have family members here in Toronto, or what city are you in?
So we're in Toronto.
You're in Toronto. You had family members. I know some. Sorry, I'm half Jamaican. And I know sometimes when families come up, they're a sponsor or they stay with another family or something like that. But in your case, it sounds like you're the first in your circles.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, for me, I mean, my family, so my family, my aunts, my uncles, my, grand aunt, like they all grew up here. They all immigrated here early on.
Okay.
Right? So So
okay, that's good.
We fortunately we had, family here to kind of lean on a little bit, but again, you don't want to be a burden.
Yeah, and in terms of building a career, generally that doesn't really support that aspect of it.
I'm not saying that makes it easy. You are still starting at the bottom. You're still starting from the bottom. You're still starting from scratch. Networking, getting to know people, building. I was asking for for listeners to understand what it's like. I was trying to get that perspective for the people listening. No, it's a deeper conversation about other people who are in careers where they have to start at the bottom, like a doctor or nurse. You both have a marketing background, so the skill sets transfer over. Just building those connections, and you did a beautiful thing. Hillary, do you have any other questions before I ask the last one there? Because I would love to ask that last one.
Yeah, well, I didn't have any other questions. I only just wanted to say that what I thought was really nice about the nod to that working from the ground up in those realities is not so much for me, wasn't really thinking about what questions that might bring up, for the kids or those conversations, but more so I can imagine a mom reading that and feeling seen in sharing this book with her kids. And I got emotional thinking about all of the people reading the books to their kids who are going to be the authors of this book know that I struggled to be able to be here to do this, to even read this book to my child. And I just thought that was really sweet. No, that was all I wanted to say.
Shout out to moms.
Yeah. And dads, anybody.
Anyway, all parents.
And dads. And Hillary.
Well, while we're and cat moms. While we're shouting that out, though, I will say that the nod at the front about girl dads did make me cry. That did make me cry. I was like, Anyway, Clinton, go ahead. You can ask the last question.
My oldest is my first. I think I'm on a delay. So I just realized. Is my audio delayed?
You're just entirely delayed, I think. A little.
Yeah, not. It's
not great. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I'm bringing the cover back up because Hillary and I, found this really interesting. So as we move forward and evolve in technology and what technology can do for us, from the typewriter to Microsoft Word and to tools in artificial intelligence, our understanding is you folks, and it does still take thought and work and revisions and knowledge, but the cover for this book was generated using AI.
Well, there are certain elements.
There are parts of it. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, again, my background is in design.
Yeah, he's making movie posters and moving parts, moving everything, creating the entire background, the scene, the font. So when we talk about the aspect of AI, we're very careful when we talk about it from the perspective that there's a lot that went into building it. We liken it to.
It's like getting. I don't know if anyone here is a designer, but it's kind of like going to Getty Images or Shutterstock,
and
but you still have to.
You have to build it,
create everything,
and pull everything together.
Right? So exactly. So, I mean, other people use it in different ways, but because of my background in design, I'm still kind of a purist. I still draw, I still illustrate, but if you're an illustrator or a designer, you just kind of use it as an additional tool, the same way you would Shutterstock or Envato or,
because that cover was it was literally, it was built, but there are elements that were created, and then he did his magic.
Because I was throughout the book, I was so enthralled by how seeing hair in a texture that's felt so real, and I was super interested, and I was about to message Clinton being when you look at this it's illustration sold on graphics and incredible, and then I read the disclaimer at the back, and I was I don't know if I believe AI can be that good to our people, because we also have a lot of conversations and want to bring up at some point an episode around the fact that AI can be racist and the robots can be racist if they're programmed by white people. And so
the work that had to go, again, as you mentioned, the hair, he's literally hand drawing like certain things
and
fixing the skin tones that
redrawing stuff.
Exactly. So we see it because you want to make sure you are honest about the process and share that. But we also talk about the perspective that this is not something that we just press the button and it just appears.
No, it's very good
a lot of
that you're talking about that. It's very good that you're talking about that, because the more deeper you get into understanding AI, it's not as simple as they might make it look on a YouTube clickbait thumbnail or a news heading. That's why it's like the typewriter to Microsoft Word. Like, you're still doing a lot of work, but it is a piece of software or multiple softwares and tools. But I just see this being integrated more and more in the future, and it's a beautiful cover visually. It's
Thank you. And what we wanted to put forward as well was just that it being a tool, and it's a tool to really get stories out there, because in our journey and researching the whole publishing process and everything like that, even if you were trying to go a traditional road, it's something that would take years sometimes for you to be able to produce things. So we're grateful to be able to put out the story in the way that we did. Go ahead, Clinton. Sorry.
I'm so sorry about the delay. I don't think I'm going to talk much for the rest of the episode. I was just saying exactly. I was just agreeing with you.
Well, I think that lines up, because I think that we have gone through everything, all the questions that we had about this beautiful book, Jerk Chicken Magic. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and for sending us that like advanced copy so that we could, read it ahead of the episode. And having read it, I encourage anyone who's listening to get it. I think it's a great resource to send to any children. I think it's great for conversation starters. Like we were saying, if you're an adult who wants to bring in different cultures into other people's lives, and if you are any educators listening to this, I think go wholesale buy some for your class or for the school.
We're working on a resource to support the conversation as well. So that will be on the website very soon to help.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And teachers,
Yeah, because I definitely see the benefit that like growing up in a white community, I can see where that would have really helped my little Black person way back in the day having these types of conversations. So Noel and Roxane, thank you so much for speaking with us. That was coconutmilk.co for anyone who wanted to order, or Amazon until we get those out into some bookstores. And this was an episode of BlackLantic. Like, comment, subscribe, go show them in the book some love. Peace. That was it.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.